Buddy, welcome to my channel. My name is Brittany Andrew. I am a pianist, musician, composer, and I am also a researcher of musicians' mental health. I did a master's degree in music psychology at the University of Sheffield, which is a field of science that has its roots in the 1950s, where you can study music and the brain in two different categories. Most musicology research and scientific research of music in the brain is filed under two branches, which is music cognition or music perception. So anyway, that's a bit about me. And in 2021, I conducted a study of musicians' mental health and well-being, focusing on New York City jazz musicians, of which I've been a jazz pianist, and I studied jazz when I was very young, and I grew up in Seattle, which has an incredible jazz education scene, and I started piano because my mother played the piano and flute. And so I started playing those instruments. And then I started studying jazz when I was about 12. And grew up in a really competitive jazz environment, where we were in jazz bands. We were vying to get in the top jazz band. We were constantly trying to improve ourselves as musicians, and we would go on these competitive high school jazz band competitions, if you will. So I was competing on a couple of instruments when I was a teenager, and our program was very strong and award-winning, and so I had these really strong experiences as a young person, and I decided to move to New York to study jazz when I was 18. And so I've been there ever since. And anyway, I've come on here to tell you, that's kind of my background. Flash forward many years later, I have had a wild career in life in music. And I am on faculty at the New School. I don't know if I said that already. I teach music technology software there, and I continue conducting and publishing my research. Forgive the handheld mic. I am on a portable recording setup here, and obviously I couldn't bring a mic boom stand down to Mexico, but I would if I could. But anyway, if I'm a vlogger, I will have really good audio on the vlogger, so help me. But anyway, so I've been teaching at the New School for a couple of years now, and I wanted to take the time to come down to Tulum and just get away from everything and focus my energy in a place where I had a lot of daylight, as you can see, because in New York I am pretty starved for that in my apartment, first and foremost, and secondly, I wanted to be in nature. So I'm presently in the National Eco Park near the National Eco Park, and my view is just all these treetops for miles in every direction. I got really lucky because there was a hurricane right before, and they upgraded me to this cool suite. Other than that, I was just traveling on the cheap. But, oh God, I think it's probably peaking. Anyway, let's see. I wanted to pop on this live because I've had time to think. I've had time to process. And I gloriously had a wonderful week where I woke up every day at 5:30 in the morning, and I set up my recording rig, and I, with this microphone, recorded all of these birds right out here. And it was a beautiful experience, waking up with the sun every day and going to bed very early, and living a really circadian rhythm, healthy existence, which has been absolutely divine. And I'm going to be real sad to go back to New York, where I don't get sunlight and I don't get to relax as much. So, but anyway, I did these live streams of meditational music where I was playing the keyboard and improvising live to the birds, to the bird calls, and learning how to use OBS software, which I am now in love with, and learning how to use Restream, and very excited about those things. I also use a virtual low latency audio software that's really good for live improvisation, and it's called FarPlay. There's a number of softwares out there like this, but the one I really love using is FarPlay. I had actually tried Jack Trip in the pandemic, but I was in grad school, so I didn't really have time to like properly do much. But anyway, I've found that I've been able to teach my students virtually from anywhere, and that this enables me to be sort of nomadic as a teacher, and it's really freeing, and I think that's definitely something I'd like to do more of in the future. And so I've had a couple students down here and dial in from Vancouver to Mexico, and the connection had like 52 milliseconds of latency or something. It was really great. And I've been working on a lot of things down here. I have another student this week. I think we'll be doing a session from New York to Mexico. And I'm excited to do more of this. And if you're curious about trying it out, please let me know. I'd love to try a session with you. So, I'm open to helping folks get their home recording set up and their general audio systems and any of their music projects, really, as an accountability coach, as one who I myself work and have a lot of different projects, and lead a lot of different bands and am a lot of different people, which a friend of mine recently told me. But I'm very open and happy to help you set up and test it out with me. So yeah, let me know. And what can I say? Right now I am kind of working on 5 big projects. First is I have a band and an alias, a punk band. It's hardcore with a mix of experimental free improvisation and death metal vocals, and I don't know, it's been called like a queer punk feminist band. It's also been called a riot girl band. It's been called a lot of things, and I'm making another record with that. That's been a very slow burn. Secondly, I am working on getting my research published in an academic journal, which is a long, arduous process. So that's quite another headspace that I've been working on and progressing here in Tulum. And third, I am trying to transition into more tech work as a researcher, and working on a portfolio for that. So that's been a lot of work as well. Fourth, let's see. Can't even remember my own projects. I am composing meditation tracks. The whole reason I came down here was for the light and the birds and the ability to focus and compose music. So, it's been wonderful. And having a music psychology research background has been really cool. I'm also somebody that's very, very into crystals and healing, and in various parts of the world where I've been fortunate to tour and live and travel and make music in. I've experienced a lot of living with sound healers in the Middle East, people who are into frequencies and Tibetan singing bowls, and all over the Gulf. I stayed in and made music there, and really went on a journey there. So it's really nice to also see the science behind why certain music and how certain music can impact our mood and well-being and improve our health. And it's fun to be on that side. It's also fun to have take a break from the competitive nature of jazz piano, which I've spent many years earning a living as a jazz pianist in New York. And it's quite a grueling lifestyle. And I wanted to talk a bit about that on this channel, and I think I'll be making more videos because I'm feeling free, at least freed up down here. And noticing a lot of, how can you say, points of friction that I think musicians in New York deal with. So in order to sustain well-being, and from my survey that I conducted, I have a lot of data points on that. And if you're curious about that, you can check out my music psychology salon, and where I there are videos on YouTube where you can see the results from the survey. It's a 44-question survey. So you can see how people replied on their income and demographics, well-being, age range, mental health, and et cetera. But anyway, having a bunch of projects hanging in the balance, and being one of, as a woman in jazz, you're always, maybe oftentimes the only woman in the room, maybe, but that's changing. That's been changing since 2017. There's a lot of interesting aspects of identity that I think women in jazz, women in non-binary jazz, have to kind of navigate and circulate, and I like to explore discourse on that a lot. And I think there's also a place where it's good to just leave it rest, but I think where am I going with this? I wanted to specifically talk about how the congestion of living in New York, and then also gender identity and energy, the impact of those things on musicians. When I think there's a stat from the way back, I think in the 90s, by a researcher called Jan Lederer, where it's one of the few cited published academic journals, citing that there are less than 5% of working professional women in jazz, whether teaching in higher education, exhibiting, performing publicly, working, getting gigs, doing the thing. Role models are so important. Visibility is important. Finding a way to make a path is important. I commend the work that Women in Jazz organization does with this, in recognizing this issue, that when you don't have any mentors, and especially in the jazz system, it works on the mentor system, and the person you study with is a bit of a calling card. But there's this problem where if you're a 14 to 22-year-old woman going to jazz college and all the faculty are male, and a lot of things, as we've seen, things can be predatory in order to have working opportunities, right? And since 2017, thank God, a lot of those things have begun to become dismantled, and now there are more women on faculty, and myself included. I never could even visualize myself on the faculty at New School because there were so few women doing what I do, and I'm really happy to be there, and to be there especially as a agent of change, as a protector, as a supporter, especially supporter of young musicians, and particularly women and non-binary musicians there. So, but I also value the importance of understanding and balancing masculine and feminine energy, and also appreciation for both masculine and feminine people. I think when people are, if you've experienced a lot of resistance from any side of the coin about gender, whether it's masculine or feminine, repeatedly, you can get into a hole, and you have to be able to tend to those paper cuts, and also you need to acknowledge what it is you require to be able to live life as a working musician in community and sustain life as a working musician in community, especially when the community suffers a lot of marginalization and fear and instability, lack of income. And so I think that can be particularly challenging for all musicians of all age, into your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, etc. And I love older people because they know, they're mature, they've been through it, they don't waste their energy on the things that don't matter. But anyway, I think the paper cuts that, right, so I've been studying burnout. I've been studying burnout and psychology, and as somebody who was a working artist with 5 bands that I led, a person who was always gigging, a person who was sort of falling prey to the violence of the productivity violence of jazz, of the gig economy, of the working musicians, of being a working musician, right? The fact that as a pianist, I needed to juggle 10 students a week plus a private business teaching, and then take whatever gigs came my way as I built a career, as well as juggle in between working in jazz circles versus rock, and then presenting my own band later on with like feminist queer punk, which I spent 5 years like not telling any jazz people about, because I felt like deep jazz culture snobbery that they would reject. And especially as a female-bodied person, right, as a AFAB musician, that if I sang as an instrumental jazz pianist, right, there's a lot of aspects of toxicity in jazz where a lot of misogynistic views of vocalists and women in jazz. And there's a Venn diagram, right? It's not all one thing. There's right? I'm spelling that out for you. There's the reality that instrumentalists and vocalists often clash in terms of ideals about improvisation. Most jazz instrumentalists or horn players just want to, they want to get in there at a jam and blow for 50 choruses, whereas a vocalist, they want to maybe do 1 or 2 choruses of lyrics and then 1 or 2 choruses of scat. They're calling tunes that the instrumentalists don't know. The lexicon is different. The domain is different. The repertoire is different. And then there's also sexism and there's misogyny. But that's, anyway, for another video. Anyway, I guess I'm just saying that there are a lot of reasons why a lot of productivity violence, I think, particularly for artists, but also women artists in particular, they will deal with burnout faster, right? Women deal with burnout more frequently anyway, statistically. And to recover from burnout, you have to complete the cycle of burnout, and you can't force it. And it took me 3 years to realize that I was burned out, and I was always a person that was pushing through my burnout, as a young person. Even in high school, I, was a straight A student. I would break out into hives if I got a B on a paper, felt like my goal of being a valedictorian was going to be threatened. There were several times in high school I was terrified, So anyway, perfectionism, productivity, all of these things. And anyway, this is all coming up for me today because I watched a video by the vlogger named Alexis, who is she's like a divine feminine business course for women vlogger. And anyway, I'm gonna have to go to part 2 because my battery's dying. But anyway, I'll try to be quick. So I watched these videos that she made today and noticed that she's been also watching the same podcasts I've been watching, including Lewis Howes' School of Greatness, Diary of a CEO, a lot of these masculine male business energy. And she divides masc and femme into 2 energies, right? So you can think masculine is money and business, feminine is divine energy and like a diffused awareness, as Alison Armstrong talks about, right? Which is really estrogen, right? Estrogen does that. Testosterone does this. Estrogen does that. Our energy is impacted. As somebody who for the last year has been on a journey with gender fluidity, this is sort of making sense. And as a person who's bi or pansexual, have been really annoyed with these like heterosexual relationship vloggers who, oh God, some of them are just, really everything's all gendered. And I'm just like, where is the bisexual people? Like, so I'm going to be one of them today. Because masc and femme energy, like even, in the lesbian community, anyway, so this all sort of broke it down for me because, when she said that, Alexis, I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to take that and I'm going to frame it like this. So, even if I'm a masc presenting person on one day or a femme presenting person on another day, or maybe I'm attracted to somebody who is masc presenting, whether they are actually a cis man or a masc lesbian or whatever, whoever, it's still the same thing. And there's this idea of feeding that the masculine should support your feminine, but internally, even as mostly like a feminine woman, putting all these things in perspective is interesting. But she's saying that your masculine should support your feminine, right? You can't run a business if you don't have masculine. Anyway, part of me is just like, this is so like, straight people codifying things. But there's another part of me that's like, okay, this I'll work with this. That makes sense. I'll take it. Let's go. And then let's also queerify it. But anyway, so I just want to say that today because there's an aspect I think of, especially bisexuality, where there's like a conflict, right, about dating straight men or about dating lesbians or lesbian identified people, etc. Because for lots of reasons, which I'm not going to get into, but I think internally, right, we have to integrate ourselves. So if we're bi, if we're pan, if we're masc, if we're femme, if we're lesbian, if we're straight, whatever it is, if we're cis, if we're a cis man, I'm speaking to everybody, trying to speak to everybody. We still have to tune in and balance both energies. And however we package that or present on one day, or, if you are a monosexual, you don't maybe have to deal with that. Or if you're straight, you still have to deal with tuning into your energy, period. So, I just wanted to say that I think for jazz musicians, women in jazz, this is really extremely hard to, as I'm hearing Alexis talk about like advising women how to date and how to attract the right male partner. I understand what she's saying. Like, you have to package yourself in a way to attract the thing that you want, which a lot of, right? And like, they talk about wounded feminine, they talk about healed feminine. I get it. But I also think that like, some of it's just like, oh God. But, that could be my skepticism, and I'm willing to acknowledge, oh, maybe I have some wounded feminine energy, or no, maybe I'm just bisexual or queer and this is for straight people. I don't know, but that's why I'm here talking about it. To even sit with this and integrate it fully is a huge gift today, and that's why I wanted to talk about it, because that enough is like, whoa, okay, like, where are all the cracks, and I think, the reality, like, for me, I had to hustle for many, many years. I had to prove my worth, especially if you want to play like hard bop or straight ahead jazz. Those places are some of the most competitive, like, hazing spaces. There's been academic published research that white men in jazz are the most, they will be the perpetrators of toxic behavior in communities and jam sessions now, whereas black men and white women are more in a space of fostering growth and connection, and black women are rising always and succeeding and knowing where to put their energy, and I commend with deep respect so many incredible black women and women of color in jazz who are just slaying it all day. And so notably, the thing I think about most when I think about gender roles and toxic men in jazz, right, is the reality that most men in jazz can't provide much money because there's no money, and there's a specific toll on their gender identity about this. Women are free of that, so there's kind of there's a lot going on there. But I just wanted to kind of start talking about it. I don't know, maybe I'll do this again. But yeah, mostly to say that, when I hear like dating podcast people and people talking about divine feminine, and the reality for most jazz musicians who are women or non-binary or femme presenting, AFAB, all-inclusive people, they're dealing with a lot more stress in that community to just exist than to be able to luxuriously do things like retreats in Dubai and the time to do yoga, the time to meditate, the time to breathe. Like, working musicians don't have that time. Myself, I've been on a journey where I gift myself that time because it allows me to calibrate and teach and speak about what's going on here. And I think that the more I do that, I'm actually probably going to impact my community or my peers in a more positive way than if I'm running myself ragged, trying to play like 50 wedding tunes or whatever, because I know that I have so much more to offer than that kind of existence in the world. But anyway, I'll be back for more. Thank you so much for joining, and I'm gonna see if this actually worked and recorded. And then I'm going to go explore the south of Tulum on my bicycle and see if I can discover a cenote. Or I really want is get cacao. I want to try some good cacao or adaptogen mushroom beverages or something. That's what I'm going to be looking for. Yeah, we'll see. So that's what's going on. All right, I'll give you some chimes before I go. And thanks for tuning in. And yeah, thanks for watching and following my channel. If you got something out of this video, do feel free to hit that subscribe button there, and it really helps me with all the stuff. Anyway, you know what it is. All right, I'll see y'all later. Okay, enjoy your day. Bye.